What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode. Good start. We're going to back this up a little bit. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 36 of I almost said Nerd Crew. Dorks Next Door. I am like all over the place today.
It's okay.
Third time the charm. This is the bad part about like doing it live. Is like you look like an idiot for a little bit.
That's all right.
Anyways, welcome to episode 36 of the Dorks Next Door podcast. I'm your man, Andy York. Thank you guys so much for listening to us, whether it's on SoundCloud, iTunes, or Google Play, or if you join us every Tuesday as we live stream our episode, where we discuss different things, different nerdy topics, and ooh, baby, do we have a lot to talk about this week.
We do. We have so many things.
There's a lot of things we're going to jump into, a lot of things we're going to dive into, so hang on with us. We've got Game of Thrones. We're going to talk about Game of Thrones. We're going to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and if it's MCU canon or not. We're going to talk about the Falcon and Winter Soldier updates that we have, and then we're going to talk about the new Batman. We're going to talk about whether we agree or disagree, whether we're on board or not with the new Batman. So there's a lot we're going to dive into, a lot we're going to discuss.
We're going to spill the tea.
We're going to spill the tea.
We're
going to pour all the tea. It's going to be like the Boston Tea Party all over again.
But first, I'm going to shut the door.
Okay, go ahead. And before we do anything else, I'm just stuck on my chair. I'll get up in a second while you talk. Before we do anything else, Jason, how are you today?
I'm all right.
I kind of didn't introduce you very well.
Oh, that's okay.
But I'm always joined by Jason. Jason, how are you?
Jason, I speak in monotone. Always. And I have opinions sometimes. No, I'm doing all right. I guess I'll go ahead and say what I'm into this week since you're closing the door. So I usually don't have anything exciting to say for what I'm into this week, and I'm going to continue that trend again.
This is pretty exciting, though.
I didn't know this was even out. I like it. I think it's cool. My brother has a Nintendo Switch, which I've talked to at great length because I want to get one, and he's leaving it with me when he goes to camp this summer.
Oh,
which is going to be awesome. So first of all, Breath of the Wild, I'm going to be able to play through that. Haven't touched it yet because I don't want to start it until I can just play through it this summer.
Right.
But I have touched Lego Incredibles, which he got, which I didn't even know existed until he came home with it, and I was like, oh my gosh, because like Incredibles is my favorite Pixar movie.
Right.
So instead of doing the story, we've just been going around unlocking all the different Pixar characters you can play as. So we unlocked Dory from Finding Nemo, and we unlocked Russell from Up, who rides on Kevin, who's the big bird, and we unlocked Merida
and Wally
from Brave. And we're gonna get Wally. Eventually.
Eventually. So
yeah.
I didn't even know that was on the Switch. Like I didn't even know that was a playable game. So that's something I might have to look into.
Incredibles is like the movie that's probably nearest and dearest to my heart. That and Prince of Egypt.
Prince of Egypt is a good movie.
And Avengers.
Yeah. No, I think Incredibles is probably, I don't know. Toy Story has a place in my heart just because Andy's one of the main characters. So like as a kid, that was like the coolest thing because like. You would look at like people's Woodies and Buzzes they would have, and you'd lift it up and say, "See, this is still my toy. Like my name is on the bottom of this toy, so technically it's my toy." No, but Incredibles is one of my favorite like Pixar movies, and one of my favorite movies. It's a great movie. So yeah, I'll definitely have to look into that. What I'm normally into, and since this is the last week, we're going to talk about a little bit more. So I'm not going to talk about Game of Thrones just yet. What I'm actually into is I went out on the Switch. So this big Switch week this week.
Yeah.
I went out and bought Cuphead for the Switch, and oh my gosh, it is the most frustrating game I think I've ever played in my life.
So I've heard.
It's very difficult. It's I don't know. It's super weird. Like it's hard and it's annoying. It looks like it should be super easy, and it's not.
No.
And it's like it's so weird, but like it's fun because like it's one of those games of like I'm very mad. I'm mad while I'm playing it, but I can't put it down because like I'm just entertained by it and I love it. And so that's very difficult to get over and get through. But I'm slowly getting through it. Like I played it for like 3 days now, and I've almost thrown the Switch about 3 times while playing it. So it's very, very frustrating. There have been times I just like turn it off, throw it down, then like 10 minutes later pick it up, start it back up again and play again. So. Yeah, no, Gump, if you did play Cuphead, you would break something. So I would, like, your blood pressure is already probably high enough. I would probably stay away from it.
Right. If you get frustrated at 12-year-olds on Fortnite, then Cuphead is just going to send you through the roof. Yeah.
Yeah, Cuphead will make you have a brain aneurysm, like, very quickly. So I would stay away from that game. But it's very fun. It's a lot of fun. I may even like record myself playing it or something.
It's incredible for an indie game. It's like astonishing.
It really is, and it blew up really quick. Yeah, like it blew up really, really quick. So
it deserves everything.
It does. It really, really does. So that's what we're into this week. And there's a lot of good stuff that we are definitely into each and every week. So you need to go back and listen. I think that's one of my favorite segments we do is like listening to like each week what we're into. Some weeks we forget. Some weeks it's just like, yeah, not into anything this week.
Yeah. So you mean every week for me?
Right. Yeah. As soon as you walk in, like, you know what you're into this week? No.
No. Yeah. Let me think of something. What happened this week? Yeah.
Oh man.
I tried this new cereal.
What is it?
I actually did try new cereal. That was both a joke and serious, but they have Honey Nut Frosted Flakes, which is a life-changing discovery, and it's the best cereal I've ever had.
Really?
Honey Nut Frosted Flakes, god tier cereal.
See,
Because Frosted Flakes is already my favorite.
Right.
But then Honey Nut Frosted Flakes.
Are you a big Honey Nut Cheerio guy?
Yeah.
See, I'm not a big fan of the Honey Nut. Mm-hmm. But I may try because I love Frosted Flakes.
Anything. Any Honey Nut cereal, like Honey Bunches of Oats, I just love it.
Not me. I'm not a big Honey Bunches of Oats fan. I did try the other day Sour Patch Kids cereal.
Oh, really?
And it's not as bad as you would think. It's not even like as sugary tasting as you would think. So that's something that you need to definitely try if you are a big cereal fan. All right, so there's a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. We have breaking news on our on our podcast as well that we're going to talk about here in a second. Or we can go ahead and talk about it because it's one of your favorite movies and it's one of my favorite movies. It's a movie near and dear to my heart.
Uh-huh.
And that is the Minions are getting a second movie because why not?
Is that serious?
I'm pretty sure. I just got the alert on my phone, like on a Twitter notification. Because today is a big day for like movie news. Because like we also got the news that we're getting a new Terminator movie. Because of course we would. Why not get a new one?
Yeah.
So yes, we're getting a Minions 2. I'll ask you this: were you a fan of the first Despicable Me?
Not really, but it's fine.
It wasn't. The first one was funny. Like I kind of enjoyed the first one. Mm-hmm. But then it just got dumber and dumber from there. Like the Minions are one of the most loved characters by kids because of course they are. I hate Minions with an absolute
because
passion.
They're not characters. They're just character. Like they're
somebody's acid trip that they put into a movie. Right. Like that's basically the best way to put it.
They're just kind of like character designs that I suppose are appealing. And then you can just like copy paste whatever joke onto this character design, and it's like, oh, it's a minion with a fart gun because that's hilarious. I don't for me to enjoy like a kids movie at this point in my life, which I'm not like super like ascended like adult. I'm just 20 years old. You know, I'm not super old or anything, but at this point in my life when I'm kind of like maturing and getting older, for me to enjoy a kids movie, it really has to have something.
Right.
Like so many Pixar movies have something. Finding Nemo. Incredibles, obviously.
Like did you see Coco?
Like Coco, I liked Coco.
Coco was good. Coco was like the last animated besides Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, but Coco was like the last Disney Pixar movie or something like Disney animated movie that I was a fan of.
Right, because they haven't been on a hot streak lately. Pixar hasn't been on a hot streak lately. But it has to have genuine, actual emotion. It has to be put together by people with talent. It has to be put together competently. Right. Despicable Me is fine.
It's just fine.
Like the first one is fine, and I don't really care.
How many did they make? 3?
I think they made 3, and then the Minions, which is like the 16th highest grossing movie of all time. I think I said that last week.
Is it really?
Or 18th, something like that. It's right next to Emma Watson, Beauty and the Beast. So that just whole section right there is a complete mess.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I really think that's terrible. I haven't seen all of Minions. I've seen bits and pieces of it because my brother hate watched it. My youngest brother, actually, he's 11 and he hate watched it.
Okay, that makes sense.
I walk into my house one day and I look over and there are Minions on the screen and I'm like, ooh.
Going away now.
Walk into my parents' house.
Yeah. See, I'm not. I don't want to say I'm forced to watch it because like I have a choice, but I have 2 young nephews who are like, the Minions are so funny, ha ha ha. Like one of my nephews actually can do like a spot on impression of the Minions, which is kind of funny that he can do that. But unfortunately, I have seen all of them. Like I've seen all 3 Despicable Me's and the Minion movie. And I feel like a part of me dies every single time I watch it.
I can't begrudge kids what they enjoy.
Right.
When I was young, my 2 favorite things were Garfield and The Phantom Menace. So I cannot begrudge kids what they enjoy.
Right, exactly. Like I was I'm still a big, so I'm fine with it. Like Tom and Jerry was like my life. Like Tom and Jerry was all I watched, which is still good. Like it's still good cartoons to watch. Movie wise, like I think the only movie I really watched with a passion and absolutely loved was year round. I would watch How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Like Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole. It's so good. Like to the point now where like we'll watch it at Christmas time and I'm literally quoting every single line of the movie like to this day still.
Oh yeah.
So it's those one of the movies. This is like these movies are geared towards kids. And like you have to look at that. You have to realize that. But still it sucks. Like it's not good movies at all.
Yeah.
Which is it's a shame, but you know, all Steve Carell is doing is just cashing in a massive paycheck. That's all he's doing.
I'm amazed how huge the market for Minions is. And I understand that like, you know, kind of like Minions hate is just sort of like a thing on the internet.
Right.
And like people don't go around like hating on Minions in the real world.
Right.
I'm just sort of like astonished like how massive, like as they said in the chat, it made over $1 billion. Like that's amazing. Like not in a good way. It's just like amazing.
Yeah.
So
there's some things in life that like it's amazing that something happens. Like it's something that should never happen that it actually happens. Like the Minions hitting, or was it the Minions that hit 1 million or 1 billion?
1 billion, yeah.
That hitting 1 billion is like amazing, not in a good way. Like, crappy amazing.
Yeah.
Which is, oh Lord, we need to move on from this.
Yeah, I'm going to cut this
We're going to cut the Minion rabbit trail off because, oh my gosh, we can't have 2 animated like rants in 2 weeks.
No.
You're
right.
That's we're going to cut it there. So, let's start with actually what took place last Wednesday. And that was on Reddit. Kevin Feige did an AMA with people on Reddit asking questions. Any questions he'll answer. So we have some of the more intriguing questions and answers
on r/Marvel Studios, which is one of my favorite subreddits. And like there are a lot of garbage subreddits out there, but I think the Marvel Studios one is like, I mean, it's still Reddit, so there's still a ton of garbage on there, but it's like generally it's a really positive subreddit to discuss something that I'm really invested in. Right. And the memes can be occasionally funny, which is all I can ask for from fandom memes.
Memes can just be, as long as they're funny, then you know, call it that.
I'll say in the chat right here, we got asked, you call that a rant? Wow,
no, that wasn't a rant. That was a tangent. There's a difference.
It was a tangent.
There's a difference. There's a difference in a tangent and a rant.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it would have been a pretty sad rant.
Yeah, that was not a rant. We've gone on rants before. Go check out our very first DC episode. We went on a rant in that one.
Also, we're kind of chill people. Yeah. So it's like if we go on a rant, it's going to be different than like
I think the only rant
angry video game nerd rant.
I think the only rant I went on was about that guy that was like critical of like kids or like people like adults watching like comic book movies and playing video games. I think that's the only rant like I remember going on.
Maybe mine was Sonic.
Last week?
Yeah.
You hate Sonic.
Yeah. That was a fun video too. I'm glad you put that out as a separate video because that was a really good idea.
All right, so we have some of the questions and answers from Kevin Feige on that subreddit. The first one that we're going to talk about is one that we're probably not going to see unless they throw it on Twitter. And that is that we are going to be getting, or they're going to be showing at the San Diego Comic-Con a one-shot. They're bringing back the Marvel one-shots with Luis recapturing and retelling all the major stuff that happened in the MCU like he did in Ant-Man and Ant-Man the Wasp. So that's going to be really cool to see. That's going to be actually absolutely hilarious to see, I'm sure. So that's a big one. That's funny. Let's see here. He talks about someone asking him if he had any creative regrets in the MCU. And basically he just said that we wouldn't be at where we're at if we didn't take all the risks that we took, all the ones that paid off and all the ones that didn't pay off. Mm-hmm. So I totally agree with that. So he said that is, he really wouldn't change anything that he's done, which is really, really,
he's kind of the king. He's kind of the king of diplomatic answers.
Yes, he is. He's very good at his job. What story arc in the MCU is his personal favorite? He comes out and says Tony Stark comes to mind, which I think is a big one for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. They talk about, could Cap always lift the hammer in Age of Ultron? His answer is, we think he was always worthy and was being polite in Age of Ultron, which is interesting.
Again, a very diplomatic answer. He says, we think he was always worthy. Right. You know, your own headcanon about, whether like he was almost worthy or whatever, and then he finally, like in Endgame, he was able, like, still an extremely like diplomat. He like created the movie, and he's just like, well, we think it was this way, which I really enjoyed. Which
I think goes to show, like in the MCU, some things can be like your interpretation, right? But then there are other things that are not for your not a part of your interpretation. Like the big one going around right now, which is very stupid, is that when Cap went back in time. Which, by the way, I'm doing a video on the, quote, plot holes and problems with Avengers Endgame, and we're going to talk about time travel, and we're going to talk about 3 main character arcs. We're going to talk about Cap, Natasha, and we're going to talk about Tony. But they said that, like, the number one thing going around like right now is that Cap went back in time when he returned the Soul Stone.
Oh, yeah.
He brought back Natasha. They went to the 40s, and instead of marrying Peggy, he married Natasha, and that's why he went and talked about her to Sam in Endgame at the very end of the movie. But then they cut to a scene right after that, of Peggy and of Steve dancing, like in their home.
So what these people think is that he goes, dances with Peggy, and then lives his fulfilling life.
Right.
With Natasha.
Right. Because Natasha's the one that has always been in his compass. Natasha's always been the one that he thinks about when he had his vision in Age of Ultron.
Right, of course.
Just simple stuff like that. It's so dumb. And people are like, well, it's my headcanon. No, you can't, because there is a difference in thinking if Cap was being polite or if he couldn't actually pick up Mjolnir at the time versus actual story arc from characters going through.
Well, and they say in the movie that you can't bring back somebody,
right?
Even if you return the Soul Stone,
it's permanent, right?
It's permanent. Otherwise, Thanos would have done that,
and then brought back Gamora,
right? So they literally say that in the movie. I can't begrudge anyone their headcanon. I think it's dumb, but whatever.
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem begrudging it, because the next scene literally answers that question.
It does.
It shows it for there's a difference in. Like the example we're talking about with Cap's hammer, or like with Cap picking up Mjolnir, like he only nudged it in Age of Ultron. Like we don't know what his true intent behind that was.
Right.
We can guess, we can make speculation, we can just kind of talk about a little bit what we think. But then there's a difference in that and then actual story arc taking place. Mm-hmm. Like actual story arc going through. Another one that I heard was really dumb, and we'll move on pretty quick from this, is that Tony would never really make the sacrifice play. I was like, you've really missed every Avenger movie then. Like, you've really missed every single Avenger movie.
What?
Yeah. Really dumb.
But he did.
Twice. He almost did at least twice. Like, in the first Avengers movie, he flew into the wormhole.
In Infinity War, he fought Thanos. Wow.
Thanos hand to hand.
Thanos head on.
Right. And then in Age of Ultron, he was the city was falling on top of him because he was like one of the last ones to leave the city. Mm-hmm. So he was really willing to make the sacrifice play. Yeah. Even in the first Iron Man movie, he was going to fall into the arc reactor. Yet he still told Pepper to do it. He knew he was probably going to die. Yeah, he still told her to do it. And then it makes no sense.
I don't understand the obsession with this idea that Tony Stark is a villain.
Right.
Because of Civil War, that he somehow is a villain.
He was more in the right in that movie than Cap was.
He makes bad decisions.
Right.
He doesn't have a good sense of personal responsibility sometimes. But he's an extremely sacrificial character who creates his own demons. Right. And yeah, he makes tons of mistakes because he's a very human character,
right?
Which is awesome. And he's that juxtaposes him against Captain America, who's just like this morally flawless individual. But Tony Stark, I mean, he makes mistakes. The entire movie Age of Ultron was his fault. Right, that was his mistake. And after Civil War, there's been this entire discourse of like, oh, is Tony Stark going to turn into Kang because he's becoming a villain, and he's going to satisfy his villain arc, and it's like,
he's the perfect parallel to the MCU villain. He is the perfect parallel to who Thanos was, because Thanos, his own personal gain was more important than anything else. What he wanted was more important than anything else. Tony is sort of the same way, except he was willing to sacrifice himself on multiple occasions to make sure that everyone else was saved. Right. So the whole Tony's a villain thing is extremely stupid to even think about. And I don't know. People just, here's what it is. People criticized, one of the biggest complaints about the MCU is that the stakes aren't, quote, high enough, and that they don't ever take a big risk in killing off major characters. In this movie, they killed off spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it by now, that's your fault. They kill off 2 major characters. Yeah. In Natasha and in Iron Man.
3 with Thanos.
3 with Thanos, technically, but 2 that we've seen more of than, you know what I'm saying? And so, nobody's batting an eye that Thanos died. Thanos hurt more than any of them. Actually, not really, but still. But, they killed off these 2 characters. All of this, quote, theories and all this stupid stuff going around is because people can't cope with the fact that these 2 are now dead. They're gone. Yes, we're getting a Black Widow movie in, next year, but it's a prequel more than a sequel. So, she's going to come back for at least one movie. But, these 2 are gone. They're gone. So, your biggest complaint with the MCU, they follow through with it. They give you kind of what you want of, hey, these stakes were so high that 2 of our original 6 are gone. They died for it. And now you're complaining about it because you can't take it. Get over yourself. You can't have your cake and eat it too in this situation at all. And it pisses me off every time because it's so dumb to see it.
There are people who just want and expect everyone to die. And then there are people who want and expect no one to die. Right. And both of those are extremes that shouldn't happen.
Anyways,
to make a compelling story.
Yeah. All right. So some of the other stuff that Kevin Feige said. Let's see here. How far is the MCU planned out in advance? He said, we usually work with a specific 5-year plan at any given point, but often have a general plan that extends much, much further. So we're looking at several more years of MCU movies, which is absolutely great. This one's interesting to me. The casting choice that he had to fight for the hardest was for Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah,
that's very interesting to me. That's so cool, though.
Also because they were just starting out at that point, and with each movie it became... the studio was increasingly validated more and more. Right. My favorite answer that he gave here was, do you plan on implementing more about the 10 rings or the real Mandarin? Yeah. And he says yes. Yes. And I was like,
that's awesome. I'm very excited for that. This one's really cool too. He said about people asked about unfilmable storylines from comics. He said everything is filmable nowadays. It's about finding the most resonant character stories to bring to the big screen. So really anything is open. Anything could be brought into the MCU, which is so interesting to me. Yeah. That's really cool. This is him dodging these questions. This question I think he dodged the most, which is absolutely amazing. When asked about forgotten characters such as Abomination and Justin Hammer, I'm not sure I'd call them forgotten characters, but I love bringing back characters people thought they've seen the last of. For example, General Ross and Harley. So he was they could come back. I'm not saying they are coming back, but there's they could show back up, which is really, really cool. Let's see here. Let's see here. There's a couple other ones. His favorite MCU meme is the one of Tony rolling his eyes in the first Avengers movie, which is my favorite.
When I was reading through the AMA, the guy who asked that question asked a bunch of other questions in the same comment. Right. And he just replied with that GIF, and it looked like he was totally dismissing the entire comment chain. I was like, wow, I thought this guy was going to be super
cool,
nice and just diplomatic. And I was like, wow. But no, he had to. He commented under that and said, "Just to clarify, this is just the answer to my favorite meme." It was funny.
All right. He said when he realized the franchise would be huge opening weekend of the first Avengers, which is really cool.
Yeah.
His favorite scene in the MCU. There are too many to list, but I will say my entire MCU career was building up to that on your left moment in Endgame, which is cool. Let's see here.
How much will the Disney Plus shows weave into the films? Totally and completely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That means everything's going to be canon. That means we have to watch everything, which I'm a big fan of.
Or you cannot watch everything, which I really hope that they don't, which they've done a good job with so far, especially since Marvel TV is kind of removed from Marvel Studios, but to where the TV shows aren't contingent to the movies.
Right, which
would be terrible.
Right. But we're going to jump into a little TV show MCU canon because there's a lot of stuff up in the air.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Why was Iron Man the first MCU movie? We thought Tony Stark was a great and unique character for our first film because he was so different from any comic book character that had been brought to the screen before, which is very true. Agreed. And I think that's a great one to start off with. His favorite DC movie was Richard Donner's Superman 1.
Yes.
Which is,
good
I think,
pick.
a big one. And then the future, this one was interesting to me, the future of the Hulk. Many years ago, Mark came in for a meeting with us at Marvel Studios to discuss ways in which the Hulk could grow and evolve in upcoming films. He pitched a lot of cool ideas, some of which led to what you saw in Thor Ragnarok, Infinity War, and Endgame, and some of which still could be cool to see someday. So the Hulk is still going to be out there at some point, which is, well, at least that's what he's alluding to, which is still really cool. And that we get more of the Hulk. And then I think that's about it. I think that's all like the big interesting ones.
Yeah.
So a lot of like I really enjoyed like looking at things like this because like you get to see like the inside look at these things. Like you get to see kind of behind the scenes of like the process that goes into these movies, which is really cool. So like I really enjoy looking at different things like that. I think it's very interesting to see kind of pick their brain a little bit and kind of see, especially somebody like Kevin Feige who is so hands-on with Marvel stuff that like you can't really get any more in-depth than talking to him or like hearing him speak, which is really, really cool.
Right.
Between him and the Russo brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Russo brothers are the same way. So I know you answered this in the chat, but we're going to talk about this a little bit too because we have a question from our chat that says, who would you like to see fight Mandarin? And I know you answered, but I'll go ahead and let you kind of give your answer and then talk about why.
Oh, well, I responded with the Young Avengers. I think that would be really good. I think that the Young Avengers are going to be, at least in some part, inspired by Tony Stark and inspired by the original Avengers.
Right.
So for them, and also the Mandarin is a really powerful character, and I think that would give him a lot of credibility as to instead of fight one person, he would be the enemy of an entire team.
So you think he would show up kind of like Ultron did, just like to fight the entire team instead of like start off in like a one-time movie and then...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I
mean, there are plenty of characters I'd like to see fight Mandarin. I'm trying to think of like who would fit best and who I've heard rumors about appearing in the MCU, and for me, the Young Avengers.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think the Young Avengers would be a great one. I don't like you were saying, I'm trying to think of like all the rumored ones that like we're getting out because like I don't think he would fit very well in like Guardians 3 because that wouldn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Because I don't like we don't know. I'm speaking for myself here. I don't know a whole lot about like Shang-Chi. So I don't know if like the Mandarin and Shang-Chi because like
yeah.
I don't know if that would work or not. I think it would be interesting.
Well,
like,
I mean,
if
no one knows any Shang-Chi villains.
Right, so I think you could throw in somebody that we've already seen and kind of make it work.
Makes perfect sense and makes way more sense than Young Avengers. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I think Shang-Chi would work really well because like we said, nobody really knows. Like we were looking up one time before we were streaming. We looked up like Shang-Chi villains and me and you at the same time like I've never heard of any of these characters at all. Which you know, that's kind of like for Marvel Studios' benefit of like you can bring these people in, like these different characters in, and like do your own twist because nobody really knows. Because I'm not sure there's a whole lot of like Shang-Chi enthusiasts out there. You know what I mean? So I think that would work really, really well. So, All right, so let's move on to some more Disney, since we're on the Disney Plus side of things as well. We were talking about some Disney Plus things. Well, let's talk about some news that we've heard this week about the Disney Plus streaming app, specifically the show Falcon and Winter Soldier. We heard that there are rumors, and I don't know if it's technically been confirmed yet.
I think they're in talks.
Yeah, for two characters that we've already seen to come back onto the show. One being Sharon Carter, which I think would be interesting, but then second would be Baron Zemo, which I am a big fan of.
Yeah,
I think that would be absolutely great because I don't know if I'm the only one in the world because we haven't really talked about this as much. I think Baron Zemo could be the most or one of the most underrated villains in the MCU because I think he wasn't as bad as everyone said he was.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's bad at all.
I think people didn't like him though because he was just a normal person who was taking out the Avengers, and it's like that's what I really, really love about him. Is like he's just an average guy who thought out this plan of like a lot of people say like his plan didn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
It doesn't, I mean, but still it worked out. Like it still came to the end. So like I'm still a big fan of Baron Zemo. I still think he is probably the most underrated MCU villain. I don't know who else would be even in that category. Malekith?
No. Ego. I think a lot of people don't think about Ego very often, but I'd say Zemo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very, especially if we get the costume. Like, give us the costume. Go all out with it. That would be
cool. Yeah.
Give us the costume. I think that would be really, really cool to see. Sharon Carter's kind of a different one. I don't know if it's just going to be because S.H.I.E.L.D.'s no longer there. It's I don't know if it's going to be hey, you're an agent. No, because she works for was it the CIA or the FBI? She works for one of the two. I think it was the CIA.
Me too.
And so I think, you could kind of bring those two back together, kind of make it work again in that. So that would work very, very well. So that's kind of a developing story. We'll probably have more to come on in the next few weeks about that. And then we're going to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 6 debuted 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Which if you haven't, I guess this is kind of a spoiler warning if you haven't seen, because we'll kind of go into spoilers a little bit, not a whole lot, which we may not even go into any spoilers, but still, I'm going to throw the spoiler thing up there just in case. If you haven't seen any of season 5 or 6 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., then kind of come back and wait, just give us a few minutes, and then you can click back on because we'll talk about it again. We'll talk about some other things here in a minute, but season 5 and season 6 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., one of the big debates going around is asking the question, is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. MCU canon? And then what did all the different snaps that took place, how did that affect it, this, that, and the other? And you have this theory.
I have a theory.
And so I'm going to let you kind of tell your theory.
A game theory. I have a theory, and it is based off of Endgame, and a lot of people are asking the question, is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. MCU canon anymore? Because basically the end of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5 took place at the same time as Infinity War. They basically confirmed that in the show. The events of the end of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5 took place alongside the Battle of New York. And then they mentioned Thanos in that episode. They shout him out. And then that season ends, and then we get Avengers Endgame. And Season 6 is supposed to pick up 1 year after the events of Infinity War. They wrote the show when they didn't know anything about Endgame. So they just said it takes place 1 year after Infinity War, or they didn't know about Infinity War.
Right.
They didn't know about the snap or anything like that. So Avengers Endgame picks up 5 years after Infinity War, and we know that during that 5-year gap, there were a lot of dead people, and half the universe was dead. And the chances are very slim that the entire Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. cast did not get snapped.
Right.
Now, they've done statistics. I mean, it's possible. They've done, all of Hawkeye's family was gone.
Right.
All of the, original Avengers are still there. So, obviously, it's still, a storytelling thing. All of the Far From Home cast was snapped.
Right. Or were they?
Yeah, we'll have to see.
More than likely they were.
Maybe Flash is 5 years older, but he got held back all 5 years.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Do it.
But
he was, because we said last week he could be Noob Master 69 in game.
Right. But Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 6 basically doesn't address that whatsoever. Right. So people are like, is this show still canon? And, of course, we haven't gotten official confirmation because Marvel TV and Marvel Studios are kind of iffy on working with each other, even though things are supposed to be canon between the two of them. So the way I see it, so in Endgame, they talk about time travel, they describe time travel, and they explain it. And the Hulk explains that when you go to a certain point of time, when you go back into the past, then it creates a new timeline.
Right.
Every time.
Right.
There's a branch timeline every time. If you affect the events of the future, if you affect things that are going to happen. That's why they immediately went back. Cap immediately went back at the end of Endgame and returned all the stones.
Right.
So that kind of like clipped the branches of that timeline. In Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5, they're sent to the future. They don't know what's happening. And then they work out a way to come back to their present, which would create a branch timeline.
Right.
And in this branch timeline, we can see that 1 year later, the snap never took place. So in the new Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. timeline, which they didn't plan this out. This is just me saying this to be like, okay, things still make sense. I'm like the crazy guy, the crazy guy with all the with that entire board next to him with a bunch of
You're like Dr. Selvig from Thor: The Dark World,
right? Yeah, it all makes sense,
right?
It doesn't all make sense. I'm trying to make sense out of it. So there is a branch timeline that's created in Season 5 once they travel back to the present. Everybody but Fitz travels back to the present. And anyone, I mean, feel free to be in the chat, feel free to be in the comments and tell me okay, this doesn't make sense because I watched Season 5 6 months ago. So maybe I'm not exactly remembering everything correctly.
Right.
But as I remember it, they travel back to their present from the future. That would have created a branch timeline. And then butterfly effect, the snap never takes place in this new timeline. So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 6 takes place in a different timeline where the snap never took place.
Right.
And of course, something that wasn't planned. And the first 4.5 seasons, basically, take place still in the canon universe. But I think it's a good thing for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to kind of branch off from that and to take place in a different part of the multiverse.
Right.
A, because Marvel's trying to introduce the multiverse with Endgame and Far From Home. And B, because now no one has to be in the back of their minds okay, well, this movie's taking place at this point.
Right.
So how does this affect Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Right.
I think it was cool what they did with Winter Soldier. I think that was so awesome, and that really helped the show get its feet off the ground at the end of Season 1.
Because wasn't it the same weekend that Winter Soldier came out was the same? The next Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode was the episode that Hydra took over.
Yes.
S.H.I.E.L.D. fell.
That was a very purposeful integration into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But with Season 6, now we're no longer contingent. Now we don't have to worry about what's happening in the movies right now.
Right. And there's and right now there's no character besides Nick Fury, but he only showed up twice?
Yeah.
There's no character that shows up in the movies and in the MCU and in the TV shows anymore. He's still on the council. He was a part of Hydra.
Gideon Malik.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nobody like that anymore of kind of crossing over into both shows. And so I think that's kind of playing to the benefit of now they can plead the fifth and no, this is it's still MCU canon, but it's just a different timeline now. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's the way that they can make it work.
So feel free to tell me I'm wrong. That's just what I think. I mean, the way that they explain time travel, that's literally just the way it would work out.
Right.
And then we just have to assume butterfly effect, snap never takes place.
Right.
So
exactly. So
there we go.
I think it works. I think it works out really well. I'm all for that. I think that works. So Season 6
film theory.
We're not going to go into spoilers. I'll go ahead and take the spoiler thing down. But since we're already on the subject of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 6, we've only seen both episodes came out. I think it airs on Monday nights. Correct?
Thought it was Friday.
It's one of the two. I don't know
I'm
what
pretty
day.
sure it's Friday.
It's probably Friday.
Yeah.
So we've had our 2 episodes, though. We've only been 2 episodes in. We've only seen the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
From episode 1, though, what did you think of Season 6 so far?
Pretty cool. I mean, episode 1 is usually just set up.
Yeah.
for things that are going to
happen.
And
it kind of showed us everything. Like, it was like, episode 1 was basically like the trailer. You saw everything that kind of happened in the trailer. Like, it kind of takes place in season 1, in the first episode.
Right.
So,
but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I think it's going to be a good season. They've had, they kind of go on like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of goes on like ups and downs. Like, it kind of started off like kind of down a little bit. Like, it wasn't like, season 1 was okay. Like, season 1 was pretty good. Season 1 took place before, like Winter Soldier didn't take place until later in season 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that, like, the end of season 1 was great. Season 2 was, cause I don't remember all of them now. Like, there's so many going on, but I don't think seasons 2 and 3 were all that great. Like, I think they were just kind of like okay.
In my opinion, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a show that just keeps getting better as it goes, at least so far.
Season 4 and 5 were great.
I would say season 2 is better than season 1, season 3 is better than season 2, and just you keep on going, and 5 has been the best so far.
5 was amazing. 4 was so like
4 is very close to 5 for me.
4 messed with my mind so much. Like, it was crazy. Plus, that's when you get to see like Ghost Rider and everything else. So that was really cool. Season 5 with the Kree and like, because I watched season 5. I binge watched the show on Netflix after they all came out, like season 1 through 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw season 5 right after I saw Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to see like, going into Captain Marvel, I didn't think like the Kree were like the bad guys. You know what I mean? So like in that, when you get to see like the Kree are actually not great people, and then you go watch season 5, it's like, oh yeah, no, if I watched this first, then I would totally know what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still, season 5 was great. Thanos name drop got me to like freak out for a little bit. That was really cool. The time travel stuff was actually, it was pretty cool. I thought it worked really well. So season 5 was great. Season 6 started off just kind of like any season starts. It's like, we got to world build a little bit, and then we'll go into the main story of everything. So
yeah, if season 6 keeps up the momentum, I mean, it doesn't have to be better than 4 or 5,
right.
But just if it keeps up that momentum, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is such a great show.
It is.
And I'm really glad that it's renewed for season 7, and I really hope that they really stick it out, because they have a lot to prove. I think Marvel TV has a lot to prove, especially with Disney Plus coming up.
Yeah, it really does. Plus, Fitz is one of the best characters around, so I love Fitz. All right, so we kind of have gotten our MCU stuff out of the way, because we always have an episode. In our episode, we always have something MCU to talk about, because, well, it's basically the most prevalent thing on TV and movies and everything else today.
Yes.
But we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk a little Game of Thrones. We're not going to go into full detail because you are not a Game of Thrones watcher. So that you kind of get like secondhand told what happens.
Right. I do know what happens, especially right now, because the guy that I work with tells me about it. Right.
So we're going to talk a little Game of Thrones Wednesday. Actually, myself and I believe Gump and Nico are going to do a podcast, or we're going to do a live stream talking about the series finale of Game of Thrones and different things. So check that out. I don't know whose channel that's going to be coming from. I don't think it's coming from ours. I don't know whose channel it's coming from. So just kind of look out for Twitter and things like that. We'll talk about that. We'll push that out there when it comes. But we're going to talk a little bit of Game of Thrones, season 8, the series finale, on a very controversial season so far. I think that's kind of safe to say.
Yeah.
Especially with the stupid petition going around to have them rewrite season 8. I'm just going to kind of put a pin in it for right now, like for right here, and then we'll jump back into a second. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean you have to go sign a petition for it to get changed. Change.org is meant to be something actually good. Like, it's meant to do something like decent to make us decent people.
Mm-hmm.
This is not decent. This is bullcrap.
Yeah,
like, this is very
kind of
stupid,
annoying. And it's just kind of useless.
It is
too.
Because like you're wasting so much like energy on the show instead of like. And don't get me wrong, I'm a dude sitting on a podcast right now talking about stuff like this every week.
Mm-hmm.
So don't get me wrong, like, talk about it. That's what it's like. That's what these things are made for, is for us to have discussion and talk about it and talk about the things you didn't like. Talk about if you didn't like these last 2 seasons, all power to you. Like, you're allowed to not like stuff. I'm not saying you have to like it, but don't dog other people for liking it as well. Like, this is another situation of you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Like, you have to give and take. Plus, the thing that ticks me off the most, the thing that makes me the maddest the most, is when people are like, well, in my mind, it should have happened this way, that way, and the other. Like, you can have in your mind where you think things are going. Like, that's totally fine. When we were going into Avengers Endgame, we had in our mind the way that we thought things were going to go, right? We didn't get mad because they didn't do it the way we thought it should be done. Because you have to sit there and watch these things as the writers and as the directors give them to you. Like, you have to sit back. You can have all the theories in your mind that you want. You can have all the preferences in your mind that you want because that's what they're there for. It's good to have all that stuff. You're invested into it. That's great. But don't get mad when they don't do it your way. Like, you have to kind of sit back and just kind of take what they're giving to you. Now, if it's as bad as like the the Inhuman show, like, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Like, if it's like dog crap, that's one thing. But if it's something like this, then get over yourself. Like, just get over it, or don't watch anymore. Like, don't watch anymore. That's the only two suggestions I could really give you.
Yeah, I'd say I would play devil's advocate a little bit. I would say that there's always a place as a fan to say, I'm not satisfied with this. I wish they'd gone in a different direction.
Right, that's fine.
And the kind of Game of Thrones that I care about is not what I'm getting.
Right,
Same with Star Wars The Last Jedi. That's how I feel about Last Jedi. I think the hate that Last Jedi gets is just absurd.
Right.
But I don't like it. I wish they had gone in a different direction.
Right.
A lot of the changes that they made I thought were pretty dumb. But to... it gets overboard so quickly when we're talking about stuff like that from the perspective of a fan saying, I'm not satisfied with this. It just gets, like, out of control.
It does. It really does. And, like, this is coming... I'm a professional wrestling fan, okay? And here's the thing about pro wrestling fans. Like, they are as toxic as a fandom as you'll find. Like, they're up there with, like, the Star Wars fandoms and... Sonic, now Game of Thrones. Like, they're, like... Wrestling fans are never happy. Like, kind of, you might get it, you may not, but whatever. 6 or 7 weeks ago was WrestleMania, right? Which is like the Super Bowl of pro wrestling. Like, it's the biggest event of the year. What never happens is we had 3 big, like, good guy, they're called baby faces, but like 3 characters, 3 wrestlers that everyone loves. They're all 3 in championship matches. They all 3, like, everybody wants all 3 of them to win. In pro wrestling, you never get 3 big babyface wins. Like, you have to have, like, your bad guys have to win every once in a while just to kind of keep things fresh, keep things going, right? It's like, it's an 8-hour show. It's a long show. It's a stupid long show. It gets very dull and very boring at times. Anyways, they start off the show. One of the babyfaces gets a big win. Everybody's happy. The middle of the show, one of the big babyfaces gets another win. At the end of the show, the third big babyface gets the win as well. So all 3 of them, the WWE gave the fans exactly what they want. 2 weeks later, you know what I see on Twitter? The WWE never give us what we really want. Like, they never give us... It's like, they just gave it to you. Like, this... There's a thing called storytelling. They tell stories. Don't get me wrong. Right now, pro wrestling, the WWE sucks. Like, it's super boring. Like, they're not doing anything interesting right now. I get that. But, like, if you're not satisfied, or if you're not happy with how things are going, and if you can complain about it, you can, like, go on Twitter and, like, crap on them all you want, but you're still going to come back and watch if you're a true fan of it. You know what I mean? And if not, if you get bored of it, then just don't watch it. Like, just quit watching it after a while. So,
I totally agree with that. I think that whenever you're a fan of something, it's good to have a general... positivity about it,
and you're not going to like everything, and that's fine.
That's the thing with Star Wars fans. It's been talked about so much lately, is that you can't be a fan of Star Wars unless you hate something about Star Wars.
Right.
And Star Wars fans are the people who hate Star Wars the most out of anybody.
Yeah.
And the casual people are the people who go to see the movies and they're like, yeah, I liked it.
Right.
And I think that's totally true, especially for Star Wars. But I just try to, even though, Sonic. Even though there are things like that that I talk about at great length, how much I dislike Last Jedi, all kinds of different things.
Right.
I try to keep a general positive attitude about things that I'm invested in and things that I'm excited for. And I hate the idea, I hate the picture of being a fan of something and just using that and just kind of like always trying to pick things apart and always be super negative and critical about things.
And it's like, it's already like with the DC, we're hitting all the fandoms today.
Yeah.
Like we're hitting all of them. We're crapping on all of them because fandoms are great, but they also suck at the same time. Like you have your good and you have your bad. And I don't think you can call people who sign petitions for things to get remade, sign petitions for people to get fired, sign petitions for an actor to get fired that they haven't even seen him play the part yet. Like that's not fans. Like that's just people who want to complain. That's just people who want to be internet trolls.
Right.
And that's what they are. That's all they are internet trolls. The same people that like to leak out stuff about like the shows or like the season finales, or because a lot of stuff from Game of Thrones, the series finale was leaked out. There's stuff for Avengers Endgame leaked out. Like that's trolls. That's trolls. But then you have the other side of the spectrum that hates on every single thing that you have, or every single thing that you show. That's trolls as well. And you don't need that. Like if that's all you're doing with your life, then you need to either get a life or just go away. Rant over. That was a rant.
Yeah.
That was a rant.
That was pretty good.
Thank you. Anyway, so Game of Thrones Season 8, the series finale, from what you know, from what you could tell from your friend that talks about it, and from what you've read, seen things like that, what was your thoughts on how people reacted, or like what was your thoughts on the series finale, even though you haven't seen it?
It sounds pretty disappointing.
Okay.
And I'm sad, and my heart goes out to all of these Game of Thrones fans because I am a Star Wars fan who was very disappointed by The Last Jedi.
Right.
And I know how you feel. And in a smaller capacity, I am an MCU fan who was kind of disappointed by Captain Marvel.
Right.
I know how it feels to be let down by things. So it's like when I watch this other huge fandom have a season 8 of Game of Thrones where it was super disappointing. It's just like, it just kind of sucks to watch because I've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones, but I do wish the best for, all kinds of whatever media is coming out.
Right.
Even if it's something I'm not really invested in.
Right. For me, which I'm a Game of Thrones fan. I've seen I've been following the series. I've been watching. Season 8 was, I don't want to say it was disappointing. It wasn't the best. Like, it wasn't the best. And I think people were thinking with it being the series finale that all of a sudden it has to be the best. Like, it has to be the biggest thing in your mind. And this is something that I think kind of hurts, is like when your expectations are so high, like almost high enough that where it's almost impossible for like things to be met, then that kind of hurts yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, I think going into a good example of like Batman versus Superman or a movie like that, like your expectations are kind of high because like you've seen these things before, you know what they're like. So, like, you expect the best of the best, right?
My expectations were through the roof.
Mine were, too. You get there, and some of my expectations, looking back on it now, were super unrealistic. Or, like, super unachievable, especially for their, second movie they've done in that DCEU. So, like, and I'm not saying it was a good movie. It's still a crappy movie, don't get me wrong. But when you go into something with, super high expectations, then they don't get met. That's kind of, I'm not going to say that's on you, but like if it's not going to be what you thought it was, then your expectations are going to drop. And like your excitement for it's going to drop a little bit. That being said, I still don't think it was the best season. I still think it was somewhat of a disappointing season. I don't think it was as big of a disappointment as everyone says, but I'm more positive than a lot of people are. To me, the series finale, the last episode was disappointing, and the fact that like it wasn't one or two major things happened. Everything else was kind of like, okay, like it wasn't that interesting. You know what I mean? It is a series finale, and I've kind of thought some bigger things were going to take place. A couple things did, but like nothing massive really took place. Nothing massive really like blew my mind. But that being said, like it still wasn't the worst thing in the world. Like I've seen it being compared to, I don't know. Did you ever watch Scrubs? The show Scrubs. Mm-mm. Seasons 1 through 8 of Scrubs was amazing. Like I absolutely loved that show. Season 9 completely sucked, and it was their last season. Season 8 was supposed to be the last season, but they did so well. They're like, hey, we're going to do another season, and then it did not work at all. It completely failed. So it was like, that was a disappointing season ending. Like that's a disappointing series finale. This one was disappointing, but it wasn't like I'm suicidal or like I'm depressed because it's that bad. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think people are kind of like at times blowing things out of proportion, which I know is a shock. Like I know it's crazy to think somebody would do
amazing.
But I don't think it was the best thing in the world at the same time. It was weak, but I don't know. It was different. It was not what I think people thought it was going to be, and I think that kind of like people started to freak out over that. Of like it wasn't what they wanted it to be. I think it kind of failed a little bit. But to that being said, season 7 and season 8 were somewhat of weaker seasons. Like season 1 through 6 was really good. Season 7 and 8 were kind of weaker. But still, it wasn't like the worst thing in the world. You know what I mean? But I'm just a positive guy. I'm probably in the minority with this for the most part.
You are, but it's a good thing,
right? Which a lot of the like YouTube personalities and like people who talk about this like a lot, like especially like they've been watching Game of Thrones. A couple of them were like super pissed about it, and the other was like, no, it was good. Like I enjoyed it. So like I think it's like you're gonna have people on both sides of the spectrum. There's not very many people like in the middle. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I think, which I don't think necessarily is a bad thing. Like especially for the Game of Thrones writers, like they have gotten so much investment from their fans that this season has been quote controversial, but that's just a dedication to like what they've done in the past, like how great they're like kind of like with Star Wars, like the entire franchise of Star Wars, everyone's a massive fan of it, right? So like everyone's expecting the best of the best of the best, and then people get pissed at like The Last Jedi, which is understandable, but it's like it's just a testament to how much you've made people love your product.
Same with The Walking Dead. I was really into The Walking Dead for a while, and I dropped off at a certain point.
I watched the first episode.
That was because I love. Oh wow, the first episode is probably might be the best episode of the whole series.
Really,
to be completely honest, and that's if you watch the rest of the series and you look back in retrospect.
Right.
Like, just stand alone, it's not going to be an experience that you're like, wow. But once you watch the entire series and you look back, it was like such a great like introduction.
See, my brother-in-law started watching and he says it's the best show on TV. So he loves it. So
yeah, a lot of people think it dropped off at a certain point. I did, so I kind of fell out of it. But yeah, cream of the crop, like great Walking Dead, I absolutely loved. So that was why I was kind of like let down by what was happening later, was because the show used to be so great.
Right.
Same in a much smaller capacity with The Office, and once you get to season 7 and 8,
right,
it kind of like goes downhill a little bit. But that's just because peak Office is the best show on television, or was at the time the best show on television. So.
Right. Gump in the chat, because he watches Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was pretty weak, and I have low expectations for series finales. I kind of do too.
Yes.
Because
I think a lot of people just don't know how to end their shows.
Right. Which it's kind of hard, especially TV shows. It's kind of hard to end like character arcs and things like that.
It's much different than a movie.
And then he goes on to say, I like the first 2 seasons. The rest is trash.
I think he's talking about Walking Dead.
He better be, because I was like, if you've watched the rest of Game of Thrones after hating loving the first 2 seasons, then hating the rest, then that's kind of on you. Like that's not on anybody else.
Yeah, I think he's talking about Walking Dead, which I mean, it starts out really, really strong with the first season. I think it's a show that, opposite of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., goes progressively downhill, pretty much, and just kind of starts to unravel.
Yeah, he said it was all right. Season 3 was all right, but then it turned bad when they started giving small characters their own episodes.
Okay, I think it depends on who you would consider a small character.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Yeah, he was talking about that, because then he goes on to say, "Nah, Game of Thrones is amazing." Yes, it is. So we're not going to go into spoilers. We're not going to go into like any spoiler like territory at all with this, because Jason hasn't really seen it and we don't really know, and
I'll probably never get around to watching it, unfortunately.
Right, but we don't want to this isn't a podcast dedicated specifically to that, so we're not going to spoil anything with that. But Wednesday, you can join me, Gump, and Nico. I believe we're going to talk about it on Wednesday. I don't know whose channel that's going to be on, but we'll get that information out to you pretty soon.
Nice.
So join us for that when we do that. So, are you ready for the main event of our podcast? The thing that kind of broke the internet this week, like for a day or two.
Yeah.
Which it came out, the news broke, was it yesterday or was it Sunday?
I think it was Sunday.
Sunday. So there's like the same day of like Game of Thrones series finale. Like this was a massive talking point for a lot of that day as well, until that series came out. But Robert Pattinson who is the Robert Pattinson that played in the Twilight movies that I get crap for because I've seen every single Twilight movie. Not of my own choice. Not of my own choice, but when you grow up with a sister who, like, if you wanted to go to the movies to see a movie, you had to go see one of her favorite, like, one of the movies she wanted to see too. And so it was kind of like you have to, like, take a bullet to go see something you really want to see. Sure. So
I grew up with all brothers.
Yeah,
so
you got lucky. You got real lucky.
I really did.
But Robert Pattinson is going to be the brand new Bruce Wayne, the brand new Batman.
Yes.
Which a lot of people are like, yes. A lot of people love it, and a lot of people are not on board with this at all. Mm-hmm. So
understandable.
Is it though?
It's okay. Well, no, but so
with DC's track record,
the reason. Okay, first of all,
right.
DC's track record.
Right.
If it was Marvel casting Robert Pattinson in some role, I mean, not Batman. Batman's a really big role,
right?
But like,
Blade.
You know, people trust Marvel's casting
right,
choices
exactly.
when they cast Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
Right.
It could have been a more controversial choice than Tom Holland, and I think a lot of people didn't know who he was. But at that point, when they casted Spider-Man, people trusted Marvel,
right?
Because they already knew that they were fantastic at casting. People don't trust DC. I don't trust DC, but I think this is a really good.
Right.
I think this is a really, really good
casting
decision.
Choice. Yeah.
So many people are just right off the bat. Robert Pattinson equals Twilight. Twilight bad. Robert Pattinson bad.
Right.
Which okay, whatever. I mean, if you want to look at it that way, fine.
Right.
There are so many. Like, he's such a bigger actor than that, and so much of his stuff flies under the radar.
It really does.
He's a fantastic actor, and I understand why people look at him just because of Twilight, because that was such a huge thing.
Right.
Twilight and Cedric Diggory.
Right. Here's the thing, though, about coming from a guy that's seen all the Twilights. I can put my toe in this water a little bit. You know how we talked about last week of like Ryan Reynolds being the worst, like the best part of that, of like really bad movies.
Right.
Like he was the best part of Green Lantern. Like Green Lantern sucked. Like
X-Men
the movie was
Origins
trash.
Wolverine.
He was the best part of it. He was the best part of that movie. In Twilight, the best part of Twilight was Robert Pattinson because he's super talented.
Okay.
Like he's super talented. he's a
great
great actor.
Yeah.
He looks like Bruce Wayne. Like, he looks like Bruce Wayne.
And the thing is, you want to cast someone who's a convincing Bruce Wayne, but someone you wouldn't really expect to be Batman.
Right.
That's what they did with Michael Keaton. That's what they did with Christian Bale, and it worked out great.
Right.
Both of those times. Someone who can be Batman. Christian Bale can be Batman,
exactly.
But he's a much more convincing Bruce Wayne.
Exactly. And see, that should have worked. It should have worked with like guys like George Clooney, but it just, for some weird reason, it didn't.
Right.
Which I think it was the tone of the movie was more of it than George Clooney himself.
Mm-hmm.
Because they went super comedy with that. Like, they went super cheesy with that one.
Right. Right. No, and you cast somebody like George Clooney who's just like kind of the person, not exactly the person you would expect, but just kind of like an A-lister who could pull it off.
Right.
And that's not at all who I would want for Batman.
Right.
Especially right now. I don't want an A-lister who could pull off a Batman. I want somebody who's a risk, and I love that DC is taking that risk.
And see, they've already done the quote A-lister to be Batman in their MCU. Ben Affleck,
totally.
And Ben Affleck, and he kind of got the same crap that Robert Pattinson did a little bit of, like, and Gump pointed this out in the chat of like Ben Affleck. Oh, he was Daredevil. That movie sucked. Blah 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 blah. Which he was not the best part of that movie. There was not a good part of that movie.
Right. He was Daredevil, and it did suck.
Yes, it did suck. But with BVS is a terrible movie.
Yeah,
it's a terrible movie. Ben Affleck was the best part of BVS.
Right.
His version of Batman in that movie, while yes, it was dumb. Yes, some of the decisions they made were really stupid. While the dialogue didn't work all the times.
I'm a friend of your son's.
Exactly. Ben Affleck was the best part of that movie.
I agree.
Justice League, not so much. Justice League, he was awful.
Yes.
And you could tell that something happened between BVS and Justice League.
I think the BVS press tour just kind of like broke him. Like something snapped when everybody was hating on the movie.
Right.
And he just did not care at all for Justice League.
And so like I think you needed a risk taker. Like you needed to pick somebody who, like, let's look at, and we've talked about this several times of how we don't like to do the MCU versus DC debate, but They're kind of the same thing in the same world. You kind of have to do it every once in a while.
Yeah.
Chris Evans was a risk to play Captain America because he had already played Human Torch and Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four movies, and he was not that great in that movie. Well,
he was probably the best part.
He was the best part, but that movie was
not
awful.
Good.
Both of them were. And so like people were like, "Oh, Chris Evans, like this is not going to be a good choice." Same thing with Chris Hemsworth. Like Chris Hemsworth at the time, it's crazy to think about this. Chris Hemsworth at the time had not done a massive movie.
Yeah.
Like this was his biggest movie.
Totally.
And look at the star he's become. Like look at the character he has become.
Robert Downey Jr. was complete, and this is like the tale as old as time.
Right.
Robert Downey Jr. was addicted to drugs, and he was like seen as this washed up guy who would never get a big role again.
Right.
And they fought to cast him as Iron Man, and people were like, Robert Downey Jr. seriously? Even though people weren't like super invested in the MCU yet, they were like, seriously, this is the guy that you're going to get for Iron Man. One of the most iconic roles
ever
in modern cinema.
Right.
Heath Ledger.
Yes.
Everybody lost it when Heath Ledger was cast as the Joker because they were like, this guy, seriously, how is he going to pull it off? One of the most iconic roles in modern cinema.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Even with who was I thinking of earlier? I'm going to try and remember it. Hugh Jackman.
As Wolverine,
who would have thought that Hugh Jackman would pull off Wolverine when he was cast for X-Men? But again, super iconic. All of these superheroes in like translated onto the screen, and it's like I love when they take risks with the people that they're casting.
And like let's look at DC now.
Even Jason Momoa as Aquaman works.
I forget her name every freaking time. Harley Quinn.
Margot Robbie, I think, was someone who everyone kind of saw as Harley Quinn.
Right. But she works. She works as Harley Quinn because she was the best part of Suicide Squad. To me, she was the best part of Suicide Squad.
That's a hard question to answer. What was the best part of Suicide Squad?
Yeah, you have to think about it for a minute. But she was the best part of that movie. And so like they've done good. Zachary Levi as Shazam, great.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
That's kind of an unexpected choice.
That's an unexpected choice, and it works. You have to kind of do the unexpected at times for it to work. Jared Leto as the Joker does not work. That's a risk they kind of took that was like, yeah, well, we swung and we missed.
Right.
Right,
but this is a very different thing because it's a really director-driven project, which I trust directors and casting directors so much more than a boardroom of just like executives saying, we want this A-lister who kind of looks like this character to play this character.
Exactly.
Because they're going to sell tickets. They're going to get people in the door. I love it so much when a director is like, okay, this is my project. This is who I want. And I think just like Jon Favreau was like, I want Robert Downey Jr.
Exactly. And I think we're going to see that again with Todd Phillips and the Joker.
Yeah.
Because I think Joaquin Phoenix, which we haven't seen the movie yet, which this is all kind of speculation. We're just kind of talking a little bit. But from what we've seen in the trailer and what we've seen from set photos and everything, Joaquin Phoenix looks like he is going to absolutely kill this role. Like he looks like he's going to do a great job because it's not the same Joker as Heath Ledger, not the same Joker as Jack Nicklaus. It's a different take. It's a different version. They did the same thing with Jared Leto. Jared Leto was not the same version of the Joker as Heath Ledger or as Jack Nicklaus.
Yeah.
And they took a risk, and I'll give it to them. They took that risk, and it did not work. Mm-hmm. Like, it failed completely because nobody wants to see
Hot Topic Joker.
Hot Topic Gangster Joker. Nobody wants to see that.
A pimp named Joker.
Exactly. That's what he was.
Yeah.
Like, Heath Ledger worked because it was a darker, grittier version of the Joker, and it fit perfectly into that movie.
And he was actually psychotic.
Exactly.
And that's why it worked.
Jack Nicklaus, they were trying to go for a more comic book style version of the Joker.
Yeah.
It worked. This one, with Joaquin Phoenix, it looks like they're going more of like, I can't even really tell. It's like a darker comic book version. Like, it's kind of like Jack Nicklaus and Heath Ledger kind of combined. It looks like that a little bit.
It's also supposed to be, I think, a very humanized version of the Joker, which I'm really excited for.
Which was a great testament to how much people love the Dark Knight series, is because all three of those movies, except maybe the third one, but like the first two were super grounded. Like, super grounded. Like, you could see that version of Bruce Wayne kind of being real.
Yeah.
You could kind of see that version, not like all the stuff he did, but somebody going that crazy as like Heath Ledger's Joker, as Harvey Dent. Like you could see people going that crazy. It's not like getting super powerful, blah blah. Like it was super grounded, and I think it worked. And I think they're going in the same direction with that. I think people want to see a grounded version of Batman, grounded version of Batman's characters. Ben Affleck's version was not grounded, and it's hard to be grounded when you're like dealing with Superman and like Wonder Woman and
and
all these like godlike characters.
Doesn't necessarily have to be. I mean, Batman in the comics, when he's with the Justice League, is not a grounded character the way he is in like Year One or Dark Knight Returns. So I don't know. I mean, I really don't know which direction they're going to take Robert Pattinson, and I think he's going to be kind of like a younger Batman, hopefully. Which I'm all for. We've seen that in The Dark Knight, but Michael Keaton kind of portrayed like a slightly more seasoned Batman, kind of like in the middle, in the prime of his career, and then Ben Affleck was like a sort of lame attempt at Dark Knight Returns.
Right.
But I think they could do a lot of things with Robert Pattinson. I think it's a new angle, which is super important. Like I was talking about before with Spider-Man, they took a new angle with the character.
Right.
They didn't try to do another Tobey Maguire. They didn't try to do another Andrew Garfield. And they just they wanted their own character for the new universe.
Exactly. And Gump brings up a good point in the chat, and I totally agree with him. This doesn't need to be an origin movie.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing with Spider-Man. We've seen the origin so many times.
Yeah.
I don't need to see his parents die. I don't need to see his parents get shot.
Batman Homecoming, please.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, pick it up like a year after the origin.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because you don't everybody knows who Bruce Wayne is. Everyone knows who Batman is. You don't have to show us how he becomes who he becomes because we know.
You have to show us the character,
right?
Which BVS failed to do. You have to introduce us to your version of the character. You don't have to give us the origin story. Don't do that with Fantastic Four also.
Right.
Please do not give us the Fantastic Four origin story. Launch into it like Homecoming. I think Homecoming sets a really great precedent.
It does.
And even Captain Marvel kind of launched into it, even though that kind of like had flashbacks to what the origin was, and the origin played a big part in the story. But just throw us right into the action. I mean, there's such a huge audience for comic book movies. We know all the origin stories. We've seen other movies before. We've read the comics. They're just like Batman. Everybody knows how Batman gets started.
Exactly.
But give us a compelling take on this character that's going to last.
Now, I will say with Batman, don't do the origin, but I like the fact that we're getting an origin version of the Joker because we have no idea how he becomes who he becomes.
Yeah.
Like
there's a lot of room.
Because what I love in I don't know if you've ever read it, the Killing Joke, where he's like, yeah, like he said several different times what his origin is. Like, yeah, my origin is like a multiple choice. I just circle whichever one I want to circle. It changes like rapidly, which I love because it's like that means you automatically can't trust can't trust him.
Yeah.
Because you know he lies all the time or he makes different stuff up. So I like the fact that like we're getting a version of the joke, and it's not like as far as I know, but it's not like the origin that we got with Jack Nicklaus in that joke in that Batman movie of like falling into a vat of chemicals, whatever. Like this one could be like completely different and grounded, and that's awesome. But with Batman, we don't need the origin movie at all. Like the X-Men, you could do like an origin. You could just talk about how they got their powers because everyone kind of knows how they get their powers, unless they're doing it a different way. Like if they're doing a different take on it, that's one thing. But if they're just kind of keeping the same like trope as they've always done, I don't think you necessarily have to show us what happens to them either.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
So yeah, but I think we're both on board with Robert Pattinson. It's really weird, but like since and I know you weren't a massive fan of Aquaman, but you have agreed that it is a step up. Like it was a step in the right direction for the DCEU or Worlds of DC or whatever they're called now.
Yeah.
Shazam, we went and saw that 2 weeks early. Awesome movie.
Yes.
I loved it. Now we're getting Robert Pattinson as Batman. It seems like we're getting really, really good news about DC. It seems like they've kind of, and this sounds terrible, they've kind of got rid of the dead weight of Henry Cavill's Superman. Zack Snyder. Henry Cavill's Superman, which I necessarily wasn't like awful, but boring,
uninteresting,
uninteresting. Like no human traits at all. Like no, like there was nothing we could really connect with.
Right. He's like Mark Zuckerberg.
He really is.
Yeah. Just like, is this guy a human or is this a lizard person?
Exactly. Ben Affleck, who did not care at that point what he was doing anymore. He was done.
Right.
The guy that plays Cyborg, like no more him.
Oh boy.
Which I'm totally fine with. As long as we get rid. The next thing we got to get rid of is the Flash.
Please.
Which, here's the thing: Ezra Miller could pull it out. He could. There's still a chance he could pull it out. He did not help himself with Justice League at all. But there is a chance that they could. Exactly.
Justice League.
But there is a chance that they could.
My least favorite character in my least favorite movie.
Exactly.
What an honor.
That's yeah. But there's at least a chance that they could pull something from it. Like he could do something. But still, now you have the characters. Now you have the people who want to be there. Jason Momoa is all in. Like Jason Momoa on his press tour looked like he was the happiest guy in the room. Gal Gadot, she looks like she's enjoying, or at least she did. I don't know after Justice League, she may not enjoy it anymore. But she looked like she was like enjoying playing the part of Wonder Woman, and she works as Wonder Woman. She's starting to slowly work as Wonder Woman. Zachary Levi obviously looked like he was having a great time playing Shazam.
Yeah,
which is great. Margot Robbie, she looked like she was having a great time playing Harley Quinn because she works as Harley Quinn. We're getting new Suicide Squad characters. We have a new Batman. So it looks like DC is heading in the right direction. And it looks like if they take the mode of let's do it all over again. Let's build these characters up, then let's bring them together. Let's tell stories with these characters. Let's get people invested with these characters, and then bring them in for a massive story with a villain that we all actually want to see, not somebody like Steppenwolf.
Yeah,
because I think the best thing about like the first Avengers movie is they gave us a villain that we already saw that we had somewhat connected with, and so people were like, "All right, let's go see the Avengers take on Loki because that's awesome." Justice League is like, to be quite honest with you, I really never heard much of Steppenwolf until that movie.
Yeah.
Of like, I don't really care who you are. Like,
and
Doomsday would have been.
Still don't care who he is.
I care even less now.
Right.
Doomsday would have been awesome to see.
Well,
they did, but a good version of Doomsday would have been awesome to see. Brainiac would have been amazing to see.
Yeah.
Trying to think of all like.
Well, then again, Justice I'm thinking like who do I want the DCEU Justice League to fight?
Right.
Steppenwolf is the perfect choice because now you haven't ruined Steppenwolf.
Right.
I mean, you have ruined Steppenwolf, but you haven't ruined Brainiac.
Right. Exactly.
So that's good.
That makes
because I know that whatever villain they're gonna do, they were gonna do for Justice League was gonna be ruined.
Who was supposed to be the main villain? It wasn't Steppenwolf at first. It was supposed to be.
No, it was always Steppenwolf. Darkseid was originally supposed to show up, and that was going to tease the grand Darkseid plan.
Which I think Darkseid would have been a good one.
On paper, Zack Snyder's DC plan sounded good.
Right.
Not exactly what I would want, but I could see where they would work.
There's just
and they
a
could
poor
be really
execution
cool.
of it.
But I won't get into all that. Maybe we'll go through that someday, his original plans. I think so many YouTubers have already gone through it.
Yeah, but
though.
we haven't given a crack at it yet.
True.
So we'll have to definitely look into that. But Robert Pattinson, thumbs up.
Yeah.
Great choice so far. We haven't seen him yet, but we're leaning towards a great choice. It's different. It's interesting. You have made yourself sort of relevant again by putting yourself out there and doing something different, which is great.
Yeah, and I've always been, ever since they announced that they're doing a standalone Batman movie and they've got a strong director for it, and it kind of falls outside of canon, then I've been like, yes, this is what I want. And then they announce an actor that I like, which I'm like, yes, more good news.
I think we talked about Robert Pattinson playing Batman like a month or so ago.
I brought him up as a suggestion.
Yeah, I think it was part of the rumors too of like he could end up being. So I think this works out really well. All we have now is to see John Cena get casted as a thing in the Fantastic Four, and we're all set. We're all good to go.
No.
No. Good Lord, please no.
He's going to be in the Suicide Squad.
Cena?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Totally. Yeah.
Who's he?
He's going to be Peacemaker. Oh God. And the Russian guy from Ant-Man is going to be Polka Dot Man.
That one I'm okay with.
Yeah.
That one I'm okay with. Cena, no.
No, I think it'll be funny. I think it'll be like Dave Bautista again. I think he's just making Guardians of the Galaxy for DC.
Right. It's just I already have a disdain for John Cena as a wrestling fan. So it's already...
Apparently Idris Elba isn't playing Deadshot. He's playing somebody else.
So who's playing Deadshot now?
I don't know if
Bring back Will Smith. Will Smith.
Epic. I don't think Deadshot's going to be in it.
I think that's fine. I really think that's fine.
Yeah.
Because it did not work with Will Smith anyway. I feel bad for Will Smith. Like, I really feel bad for Will Smith.
Because he keeps
getting really crappy roles.
His agent keeps throwing him under the bus.
He needs to fire his agent.
Yeah.
Because the Aladdin movie looks like it's shot beautifully. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful movie.
Yeah, visually, I really
Visually,
like it.
it's going to be great, but no.
No, and they released the Prince Ali song on YouTube, and I was like, I'm going to go to the playback speed, and I'm going to speed this up to 1.25 speed so that it's actually like not a funeral dirge.
But it's still slow.
Yeah.
It's still super slow. It's not a good song. It's a good song, just not there.
Not well executed.
Not well executed.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited for Robert Pattinson as the new Batman. I think that Batman movie's slated to come out like 2020. 2020?
Yep.
I thought it got pushed back to 2022.
Let me look that up, and you can keep talking.
If it's 2020, then I'm very excited. That's awesome if it's that close. So Robert Pattinson, big. I think it's a big win.
2021.
2021. Okay, that sounds more realistic. That's still soon and very exciting. To see that's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I thumbs up for Robert Pattinson as Batman. Thumbs up for Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker. Like DC is on the up and up right now, and it's very exciting to see DC slowly starting to climb their way back to the top, which is very, very exciting indeed. So, do you have any other thoughts on anything that you would like to bring up, or anything else that you would like to say?
Nope.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Dorks Next Door podcast. If you are listening to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, or Google Play, make sure you leave a review. Make sure that you share it with your friends. Share it with your loved ones. Make sure that you spread the word. If you're following us on YouTube, if you're listening to this on YouTube or watching this on YouTube, please make sure that you hit a subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell so that you never miss out on a live stream or a video. We've got some very interesting and exciting videos to come up very, very soon. We're very excited about doing more and more stuff. It's the summer now. I'm no longer in school, so we can do more stuff. Yes. Very excited about that.
That is exciting.
You can follow me, or you can follow the channel on Twitter at Dorks Next Door. Take out the E from next. You can follow me on Twitter at I'm Andy York. You can follow Jason on Twitter.
I'm on it right now.
Looking at it right now.
I have to tweet something. Live tweet from the stream.
Yes. What are you gonna live tweet? You gonna at me? You gonna at me, bro?
What do I say? I'll find a meme to send to you.
Okay, he'll send a meme. You can follow him though at D&D Jason, which stands for Dorks Next Door Jason. So,
yes.
You can follow him there as well. Make sure that you go and like our new Facebook page on Facebook.com, the Dorks Next Door. We couldn't use our old one because Facebook is stupid like that at times. So we had to start a new one. So make sure that you follow us there. Make sure that you join the page there. If you want to send us an email, if you would like to talk to us about anything, you can do that dorksnextdoor@gmail.com. And I think that is all the stuff I have to plug. Next week, I don't know what we're going to talk about next week. We've got some things we're going to work on. We're going to talk about some different things for next week. Hopefully some new news breaks and some different things. But I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. We appreciate you guys listening. We appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week. And we will catch you guys in the next video.